The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.
Money makes a world go round. It makes a world go round. Money makes a...
Nope.
Welcome to the Soapbox, a summer special from The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML, compliance, and financial crime to the real world. Since Victorian times, the humble soapbox has symbolized free speech and the open sharing of views. We're channeling that spirit and inviting industry experts to share their hot takes on today's most pressing questions. I'm Marit, CEO of Strise, and in this episode, you, the listener, will hear candid discussions about regulation, AI, pain points, frustrations, sanctions, motivations, and more. Let's dive into those discussions.
Question number 1.
If you were the regulator for a day, what's the one thing you'd change?
Hello. If I were a regulator for a day, here is what I would change. I would make it illegal for companies to design contracts, pricing models, or service terms in a way that intentionally confuses people. I would apply these to things like client agreement, privacy policies, and terms and conditions. You know, the ones that are 20 pages long, written in legalese, and designed so no one actually read or understand them. Because when you think about it, these documents are supposed to protect both sides. But more often, they are used as tools for manipulation, full of loopholes, auto-consent boxes, and tiny print that only benefit the company. So here is what I would do. Any policy, pricing plan, or user agreement would need to pass a plain language test. If an average person can explain what they just agreed to in under 2 minutes without a lawyer, that company would be required to simplify it or face real consequences. And that test wouldn't be internal. It would be based on actual user, not just legal teams. Because in areas like AML, we regulate financial risk down to the smallest detail, transaction pattern, source of fund, even ownership layer. But when it comes to legal language that impacts millions of customers every day, there are no real standards for clarity or fairness. And confusion in a lot of cases is profitable. That's exactly why it needs to be challenged. That's what I would change. Thanks for listening.
I'm Jonathan Alm, a KYC officer at Alandia Insurance Company. I'd have more conversation with the companies that you supervise and a lot more open conversation both between the regulatory entities and the companies in the field. We are fighting a common enemy, and that's why we need collaboration and less silos.
I'm Sven Martinsson, and I am the CEO and founder of Allega Chain Analytics. Well, that's actually quite easy for us to say. I'd say that really working and opening up the market for private actors that are actually out there doing big data, doing the work that really pertains to, well, in our case, for example, crypto intelligence, but of course the AML field in general. There are so many providers out there, and it becomes really hard to work with not only the regulators themselves, but with law enforcement, tax authorities. So I think that would be the first thing that I would do, is making sure that it can be a healthy and safe space to actually expand the collaboration in a much, much easier way. Just pure transparency throughout both public and private sectors. Basically that.
In the last year alone, over 142,000 small business accounts were closed by UK banks. Many of these closures happened without clear explanation or sufficient notice, leaving businesses scrambling to pay staff, suppliers, or even keep their doors open. This isn't just a business issue, it's a human one. For individuals, losing access to a bank account can mean missed rent, unpaid bills, and frozen wages. A friend who was mugged for his phone and then had his accounts hacked had the money returned, which was fantastic, but then the bank closed his account. This can't go on. Governments are taking action, but they need to take more. In response, the government introduced new legislation, the Payment Services and Payments Account Regulations, and they come in April 2026. They require 90 days notice before closing an account, up from 60 days. You've got to give a clear written explanation for the closure, and obviously there's a right to complain. But it's just not good enough. Banks should not be acting in this way randomly. It just shouldn't go on. If I was a regulator for a day, I'd want to change this. And in conjunction with that, there are problems with payments, and really it's a hidden crisis. So closures aren't the only problem. Increasingly, banks are holding up legitimate payments, sometimes for days or even weeks, under the guise of fraud checks or compliance reviews. Now, I'm a money laundering reporting officer, or I was, and I still think this is just totally overblown. It can cause serious consequences: delayed payroll for employees, missed mortgage or rent payments, interrupting supply chains for small businesses. According to data, up to 29% of account suspensions last more than 60 days, and 19% go on for 90 days. And if I've got a beef, it is a personal one, because I have regularly had my payments to my French bank account, which is in the name of the remarkably dangerous Monsieur Mark Taylor. I have had payments to that account in France blocked from, unbelievably, my UK bank account, which is in the name of Mr. Mark Taylor. And so I've never understood, I've never had a clear explanation as to why these delays take place. Sometimes they ask for my birth certificate, even though they've got it already. If I've refreshed all of my KYC data, which I have recently with the bank, they still ask for the same information. Why are they doing this? It means their systems don't work properly, and they just need to get better, and the legislation needs to support that. Because when banks act without explanation or delay payments without cause, they erode our trust in them and harm the very people they're supposed to serve. So if I was a regulator for a day, let's be clear. Access to banking is a basic right in a modern economy. Whether you're a student, a pensioner, a sole trader, or a startup founder, you deserve a system that is transparent, accountable, and fair. So I think the regulator has to do a lot more. It needs stronger oversight of account closures and payment delays, clearer communication from banks, and faster dispute resolution if customers are annoyed. And I'm going to stay annoyed whilst banks make really stupid decisions about same name, beneficial owner payments, and other things like that. And so banks just need to act better, and regulators need to make them.
If I were a regulator for a day, I'd probably unleash AI-powered autonomous compliance networks where machines across institutions and borders collaborate in real time, detecting and stopping illicit flows without human delay or bias. So imagine a global digital nervous system that constantly scans, analyzes, and acts on suspicious activity, automatically freezing assets, flagging risks, and even predicting new criminal methods before they emerge. This would shift compliance from reactive policing to proactive defense, making financial crime not just harder, but near impossible to pull off at scale. It's bold, it's disruptive, but the future demands we stop chasing shadows and start eliminating every corner of the financial system instantly and continuously. One thing that I've been observing is that, financial criminals exploit silos, delays, and inconsistencies in how information flows. So by breaking down these walls and forcing seamless, secure collaboration between institutions and regulators globally, we turn isolated signals into early warnings, making financial crime far harder to hide or execute.
Question number 2.
What should AI take over, and what should it leave alone?
I'm Janne. I'm the CEO of Fintech Farm Helsinki. I think that's not even a matter of opinion. I think AI will eventually take over everything, and it's more like everyone has their own AI agent who is running, business on their behalf. If you're a financial institution, it will do regulatory matters. It will do all the AML and compliance work. But then on the other side, again, we will have AI also on the criminal side as well.
In financial crime prevention, AI is powerful where human hit limits, especially when it comes to linking fragmented complex data at scale. It can help uncover risks we simply couldn't see before. So it could be used to automate onboarding, risk scoring, sanction screening, or monitoring as well. expose hidden networks through ownership structures, nominees, and layered transactions, even spot suspicious patterns or behavior anomalies in applications like signs of fraud or synthetic identities. But here's the catch. AI can flag risks. It can't really interpret those risks. It doesn't understand intent, nuance, or the shifting politics and ethics that surround compliance decisions. That's why humans must remain in the loop, especially for edge cases, escalation decisions, and when regulations or geopolitical realities change. AI isn't static, but it's also not yet adaptive enough to keep pace with how financial crimes evolve. So it must be consistently tested, challenged, and tuned. So I would say, let AI do the heavy lifting, but never the final thinking. Because when compliance becomes a black box, so does accountability.
Hey Strise, I've been thinking about this question, what should AI take over and what should it leave alone? Here is my take. AI should take over the repetitive and time-consuming stuff, data entry, sorting information, scheduling, and even the first draft of reports or emails, as long as it's done without sharing or exposing personal or sensitive information. Basically, the work that doesn't need emotional intelligence or creative judgment. But even more importantly, AI should be used to solve problems that are just too complex or large scale for humans alone. A good example is fraud detection. AI can analyze patterns in huge volumes of data, spot anomalies in real time, and reduce false positives by up to 90%. That's a game changer for industries like finance and compliance. On the other hand, AI should take a step back in areas that need human empathy, ethical judgment, and creativity, like mentoring, leadership, or making decisions that require sensitivity to human experiences. And when it comes to education, while AI can support with tools and content, the core of teaching, tutoring, and truly inspiring professionals in development should remain human. Experienced instructors do more than transfer knowledge. They connect and spark curiosity in ways AI can replicate. So ensure let AI handle the grind, the scale, and the pattern recognition, but keep the emotional, ethical, and creative core human. Thank you for listening.
AI should take over the boring manual work that we are doing every day. It takes a lot of our efforts and our time, and we could do something more productive with the help of AI. But AI should leave the tricky decisions for humans to do. Decisions that need ethics and empathy and common sense.
My name is Sean Aurén, and I'm a senior KYC specialist at Aktia Bank. I guess AI should or might take over some manual aspects in the KYC process. Like at the moment, the manual handling of the process is quite overwhelming. So in the future, I guess AI could help make the process a lot faster, but it should leave alone the final decision making, the human aspect of the decision making process.
Question number 3.
What's the most frustrating part of your work and how would you fix it?
Bobby Bing here with Davies, Global Head of Client Lifecycle Management. So what's the most frustrating part of my work and how would I fix it? Truthfully, I don't get frustrated at work because every day feels like the Olympics of problem solving. I like to think we thrive in a fast-paced environment where challenges come at us from all angles. That's the fun part. Keeps the energy high, thinking sharp, and the work meaningful. If anything, the days where everything is calm, predictable, can feel a bit too slow. No pressure, no puzzles to solve. It just doesn't get the blood pumping the same way. That said, if there's one thing that can be frustrating, it's slow decision-making. It's a silent killer. It increases costs, heightens stress, and creates a poor experience for both employees and the clients. Momentum matters. When decisions stall, so does progress. And that's when frustration can creep in. The fix: empower teams, clarify ownership, and create a culture where thoughtful, timely decisions are the norm, not the exception. Thanks for listening.
My name is Chris. I work for Adversense, a consulting company where I am a director of financial crime prevention. It's a tough one because there's the global frustration, if I can put it like that, where we are collected here today in Helsinki and talk about financial crime and how to prevent it, then criminals are probably gathered somewhere in a bar and talking about how they can move money quicker, easily around the world, where they don't have the same compliance burden as we do. There is no GDPR rules for them. No AI concerns as such. They use all kind of methods to do their work. So the most frustrating part is probably that we are always lagging a little bit behind. Of course, in some areas more than others, but the frustration is definitely that we, in that sense, are lagging behind the criminals, and they always find new methods.
Currently, my work consists of process development and process optimization, so I guess the most frustrating part of my work as for the moment is that we have a lot of legacy core systems in our process, so it will be really good to just take the number down and have one bigger system that handles the process from start to the end.
The most frustrating part of my work is non-functioning systems and boring and really exhaustive manual work. Frequent outages, too many users at one time, which creates outages, I know, but and complicated interfaces, complex information presented in a too complex way.
I'm Jonathan. I am one of the founders from Valega Chain Analytics, and we are specialized in AML and fraud towards cryptocurrencies. I think the most frustrating part of my work is that when we look at centralized AML systems or any type of framework in this space, we can see that they're not really designed for the decentralized world. So a lot of things that are happening in crypto and the decentralized world doesn't really get caught up in the centralized systems. So for us, it would be that maybe the frustrating part could be that we have so much to educate staff, banks, to a certain extent also regulators, because it's so new and people doesn't really know how to navigate these spaces or have the best practices in place or guidance that we need. So that could be a little bit frustrating, that how do you navigate when a framework doesn't really exist and where you don't get the guidance that you maybe need. And at the same time, you need to explain what type of exposure in terms of third-party or direct exposures towards crypto businesses exist. So I would say that's probably the most frustrating part, but it's also part of the work. It's also part of the fight.
That brings this edition of the Soapbox to an end. A huge thank you to everyone who shared their hot takes and opinions with us. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, check out the back catalog of 8 seasons and more than 120 episodes, and follow The Laundry on your podcast platform of choice. Please share the podcast on your social media channels, or tell a colleague about it, or give us a 5-star rating. We really appreciate it. What subjects do we need to cover next season? Comment on the Strise LinkedIn, my LinkedIn, or email laundry@strise.ai. Your host for this episode was me, Marit. Our producer was Matthew. Our editor was Dominic. Our engineer was Nicholas. And The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise. We build AML automation software. Visit strise.ai for more information. See you next time. The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.